Oh, all right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the ships at sea. Uh, only people of a certain age understand that reference or have seen the right movies, I guess. Um, I've got 10:01, so we can get started. Um, yeah, our frailty. We're supposed to think about that according to the Buddha, um, to not forget that this is all temporary and contingent. Um, I guess maybe I have to say contingent upon something. So, for those of you who came along for the trip this weekend with Bill and Asara, that was quite a weekend, I thought. Um, it turned out to be about metta and kind of Brahma Viharas. And it's pretty interesting, really. If you haven't met Vimalasara or sat with her, I really recommend her to you. Well, I'm sorry, she goes by they, so I will say you should. I recommend them. I guess that would be the proper pronoun. And perhaps we'll have them on this in this class one day. I think that would be a nice thing to add. Yeah, I just like to teach here so much that I don't like to give it away. Give it away, give it away, give it away. So that would be, is that Red Hot Chili Peppers? Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Just to confirm. I like to get my musical references. I've been listening to a lot of Coltrane lately. Uh, you know, boy. Anyway, I could start talking about music very easily and just spend the time doing that, but might not be what you came for. So, yeah, uh, we're still in step 5. I do want to really remind people that this Sunday, the 20th, I will be teaching along with Greg Pergament a day-long retreat for Spirit Rock. It's called Keep Coming Back, Dharma Recovery and Renewal. And thank you, Angela, for putting the link in there. And this is a themed day long that I've been teaching for many years now. And it's kind of our end of the year, beginning of the year, don't drink or use no matter what kind of day long. And Greg, for those who don't know, is a wonderful Qigong teacher. And ordinarily he does not teach this day long with me because he lives in Las Vegas, but space is no longer a problem. We have conquered space. We just now, if we can conquer time, we'll be all set. Just go back and fix it all, make it better. Time travel, yeah. Okay, then. Let's meditate. We meditate for about 20 minutes, and I'll give some guidance for some of that, and make sure my bell is over here within reach. And so, the theme today is going to be mindful listening. So we can begin with that kind of spirit, um, that rather than thinking about anything that I'm saying, that you're just listening, just open the mind, open the ears, open, and establishing your posture so that you are stable and upright, or if you are prone, just that you are still. Stillness of body supports stillness of mind. And you can close your eyes or just lower your gaze, kind of just try to move out of the visual field that's so compelling for our minds to gaze. And softening through the body. Just noticing if there are any points of tension that would benefit from a release or relaxing. Sometimes we'll identify points of tension, but they won't release. So we just be aware of that feeling. Well, we use the breath in this process. The inhalation opens up, stretches the belly and the back and the chest. The exhalation releases and softens. Just letting the attention move through the body with a sense of settling. You can use the imagination in this process if it helps you to just imagine that you're being drawn to the earth, or that all the energy and kind of agitation in the mind and body are just draining down into the earth, leaving you calm, at ease, comfortable. And feeling the mood and kind of overall just emotional state you might be in, subtle or not so subtle. then arriving at the breath. The breath is just one area of sensation in this body, in this mind body experience. But this gives us a very specific area to pay attention to the breath, rhythmic and continuous. And start to explore what sensations you can detect with the breath, whether the touch of air at the nostrils or the movement of chest and belly. So as we start a period of meditation, it pretty quickly becomes apparent how busy our mind is right now. Sometimes you might be fairly calm and see that you can settle easily and connect with the breath. Other times it may be very difficult, may seem impossible to even feel the breath through the fog of thoughts and feelings. So if there's a lot of busyness, and there's a challenge getting to the breath, maybe start with just some counting of the breath. Very mechanical, but nonetheless something that mm, very simply helps the attention to coalesce, form around the breath. If you can, start to pay attention to more detail in the sensations of breath. Just noticing the different elements of inhalation, exhalation, any space between, and seeing that each element of the breath really includes a stream of sensation. The in-breath, not one thing, but actually a stream of sensation. The out-breath as well. Mm, my phone is making noise. All right. Well, always nice to sit. So, not sure that I'm going to particularly draw directly from one breath at a time, but the topic is out of here. It's on page 131. Right listening. So there are stories in the suttas where the Buddha is speaking to a large group of monks, and at the end of the talk, like 500 monks become enlightened. Uh, Now, we've come to understand that when it says something like 500 in the suttas, it's not a number they actually counted. It just meant to indicate that a great many people were there and had this experience. And whether we don't know exactly what happened or what exactly. I mean, there's descriptions of what enlightenment is, but even that that doesn't uh, satisfy us. I don't think doesn't satisfy me in terms of like what it ultimately means. But the more essential point, at least one point we can get from this pretty safely without any conjecture, is that listening to the Dharma is a way to wake up. And in fact, I think it's Christopher Titmus. I was sitting some retreats with him in the early 90s. I sat a couple of retreats with him, and a wonderful English teacher, English English Dharma teacher. He doesn't teach English. Um, and he said that more people have become enlightened while listening to the Dharma than any other method. Because we kind of typically think that it's when we're meditating that we're going to get enlightened. Uh, and uh, so, I mean, using this word enlightened itself is, I think, not always that helpful. So let's just say that we get insight, that we have flashes of insight or moments of realization when something becomes really clear to us. And if you've been around this practice and sat, and particularly retreats, you've almost certainly had moments like that when listening to a Dharma talk. And so, besides the fact that those moments are really important and valuable, the the understanding that this happens out of that circumstance and out of that presence is an important one in our practice. When I go and retreat and I listen to a Dharma talk, I have a standard kind of I could say ritual way of listening to the talk. Um, I um, I don't take notes, which and I don't. That's a personal decision because different people learn in different ways. But for those who benefit from listening, taking notes takes you out of the moment um, because by definition, writing something down that you just heard means that you're in the past and you're not really with the present moment experience. And the idea being that it's not just information that's being transmitted, but that uh, something else, and uh, and that uh, there's a potential for something to happen in that moment if you are fully engaged. And so I situate my posture in a way that I won't have to move. I essentially sit as if I were meditating, and then I try to make a commitment to only move once during the sitting. I don't wanna get physically uncomfortable, like, I might be willing to sit with more discomfort if it's just a period of meditation, because I can kind of focus on that and work with that, but I don't want the sensations in the body to distract me from listening. So I allow myself, but usually I only need to move once in the course, uh, of a 45-minute to an hour Dharma talk. But in any case, to limit that and to do that very intentionally, the movement, which is part of uh, meditation practice anyway. We could I could give another talk uh, on that, but just being mindful of, oh, I have the impulse not to move. I'm going to move. I'm going to be aware of during those few seconds of moving, and then coming back to stillness. Um, so those are two things, uh, and they might, it might sound trivial, but I think this is part of the foundation of really listening, of listening to a Dharma talk. Um, and now I find that if I close my eyes when I'm listening to a Dharma talk, I'm more likely to get distracted. So this is something that you should investigate for yourself, to see whether you listen better with your eyes closed or open. But what I do when I'm listening to a Dharma talk is I look at the teacher, and that helps me. But again, investigate for yourself what helps you to be present. And then, of course, the internal is the key thing, because that's where the insight happens. And so that just as when I'm sitting, I'm watching my mind. And I would say that when I'm engaged in a Dharma talk, my mind probably wanders less than it does in an ordinary meditation period, because there's something to really hold the thoughts, the thinking mind. And but the idea to me is not that I'm trying to retain but what's being said. This is, I think, a really important idea. I'm not trying to remember what the teacher said. I'm actually trying to get out of the way of the direct transmission of the Dharma into my mind. And that if my mind is really still and I just am listening and I'm hearing the Dharma, that it allows it to touch me and to impact me in a very powerful way. And this is what I think they're talking about in the suttas when they say that people become enlightened listening to the Buddha. So this, is there another piece to this? So the other thing I'll say is that usually there's one thing that I retain after a Dharma talk. Usually I hear one thing that, just like when it's said, I c- I can't I can't hold my mind anymore on the teacher for a moment, because it's like a house of cards, just, or dominoes, just like something, just like, whoa, what? Wait. And like there's this knowing, and there's this connecting, and all these things seem to like whoosh, come into place, and a seeing, and that's that moment of insight. It's like, oh, I get that. And then I'm kind of like, okay, come back, keep listening. But usually that
You need to come up here.
that one insight stays with me, you know. And those are the things that I remember from a Dharma talk. And I've listened to probably thousands of Dharma talks in my life. And and as a teacher, I draw from those one thing that I learned from each of those Dharma talks. Now, the I'll say the downside of this technique, if you want to call it a technique, is that when I came to uh, be invited to take on a teaching role and to give a Dharma talk, I realized that have I hadn't taken any notes. You know, I didn't. I knew what the five hindrances were. I had that down, and I knew what the five precepts were, but I did not know what the Eightfold Path was. I did not know what the four factors uh, or the four great efforts were. First time I gave a talk on right effort, I didn't realize that there was a thing called the four great efforts, which is like what the Buddha said right effort is. So I had to then study. You know, when I started to teach, I had to then go study and find out, well, what are those lists? And as I would look at the lists, though, I would realize that I already knew a lot about them. It's just that I had to clarify, like, what is that order and what are these certain elements, but the insight was all there. The foundation of the insight was there. And, you know, I'm mentoring people in a teacher training right now, and I can see that they're going in the opposite direction. They're trying to learn the list without really having the insight into it. And so when they give a talk, they can give a talk, but then if somebody asks a question, they're in trouble. You know, and this is like one of the things that I'm learning about, you know, people growing into the role of teaching. They can guide meditation, they can give a talk, but it's answering questions where the proverbial rubber hits the road, because that's where you're drawing from the stuff that's in you that you didn't know was in you, but it got in because you made sure it got in by being mindful as you were listening. You know, uh, I'll say, and I've been mentioning this more the last couple of weeks, uh, and talking about this uh, on Zoom, about the idea of really um, trying to stay present as you're on Zoom. I don't go to a lot of other teachers' teachings on Zoom, but a while back I listened to a talk with Ajahn Amaro, and it was in real time, and I just immediately like went into this mode that I'm just listening, and it's also it's also respectful, you know, that. And so one of the things I've been saying to people is, think of your home or whatever space you're in as your Dharma hall. That when the teachings are coming to you, the space you're in becomes that sacred space, and you treat it that way, and you treat your and you behave in that way, like, you know, that the way you sit, you know, and the way you hold yourself, and like you wouldn't come into the meditation hall and like sit in front of the teacher and eat a sandwich, you know, just be like, no, I wouldn't do that. And you know, and I realize, even saying that, I don't want to seem like a jerk who's like, and that's even being a jerk, but, you know, I don't want this to be like this repressive thing. Like, oh God, I can't even relax now. And I want to go to this thing and, you know, just take it easy, you know, and that's fine. I mean, I get that, you know, um, you know, this is just, you know, a suggestion. I absolutely think if you're in a space where it's like, I just need to kick back and I'm just going to like listen to a guided meditation, and, you know, if I doze off or whatever, you know, fine, you know, uh, we have to take care of ourselves at this moment. Um, it's it is tough, but if you feel sort of that you have that capacity that it's going to be helpful because again the thing is we know sometimes if I kind of prop myself up and make a little bit more effort sometimes it actually I feel better rather than oh man I don't know if I can deal with this all right whatever so just that attitude of sort of treating it seriously and I don't even mean this about oh you guys have to pay attention to me I'm talking about your practice um Was there anything else? Well, this is a training, right? This is our meditation practice. Wh- When I talk about learning mindful listening, or just like mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of thoughts, mindfulness of feelings, we can take that into our lives. And what a great capacity to have to listen to people, you know, to be able to just let go of your thoughts, let go of your judgments, let go of your planning, uh, rehearsing what you're going to say and just hear somebody. So, um, this is something I often talk about in my retreats and workshops, my live ones, when we're going to do a mindful uh, speech exercise. And that is how important it can be in the recovery world to be able to just listen to somebody. That there's often a tendency to, you know, somebody talking about their problems with you after the meeting. And, we've probably many of us have been treated this way where we're saying something and then someone just jumps in and just like lists off all the things. Well, you need to find a higher power. Have you called your sponsor lately? You should go to more meetings, blah, blah, blah. And we have kind of a checklist of all very helpful things, and not that they're not helpful, but sometimes they're not what you need to hear. Maybe you're an atheist, and you don't want to hear about higher power. Um, or maybe uh, you feel like you're going to enough meetings. It's like, don't try to fix me, right? Like just when you listen to me and you treat me with respect and respond from the heart, uh, then you're really giving me something. Because one of the things you discover when you really listen to people is like, oh, hmm, it sounds to me like maybe they actually could use this, and you sort of, uh, I think with mindful listening that you allow intuition to arise just in the same way you get insight listening to a teacher, you get insight listening to someone's talking about their problems or talking about anything when we truly listen. Um, and I don't want to claim to any special capacity in this regard, but I do notice, I mean, I'll also like in this role as a, and I see that I've got at least one of my mentees on here. So in this role as a mentor, that I I draw upon this attitude when listening to my mentees, which is not a word that Microsoft Word accepts as a word, but anyway, um, because each of them needs something different. And if I come to them with a template for how they should be behaving and what they should do as, blossoming teachers, I don't think that's going to be helpful. That's just trying to force them all into a box, right? So I have to listen to each one of them and I can give them like opposite instructions. Oh, you need to do more of this. You need to do less of that. You know what I mean? Like just uh, because I just try to listen to him. It's not any great, you know, genius, but I do think that it points then to this larger issue of the mind, right? Of our tendency to kind of lock up what we believe we know and just say that's the way it is, and to stop listening. You know, and as you get older, some of you might be getting older. Yeah, thanks, Bill. We're all getting older. Even 1-year-olds are getting older. As you get older, though, there's more of a tendency of this, right? And maybe that there's probably something biological and neurobiological about that, but also just it's hard to stay open, you know? Uh, I mean, we form a lot of our opinions and personality and, likes and dislikes uh, at a fairly early age. And then we just kind of want to cruise through life, and we lose so much. We miss so much of life that way. We just put ourselves into a box, have our 2.5 children, and this is my beautiful house. This is my beautiful wife, and it just uh, it's dangerous. It's actually dangerous. It hurts the world. This is what we're seeing played out in the world. This fear of change. So watching our own minds and watching the way the biases and tendencies to believe certain things and to not be willing to just close off certain ideas, uh, really harms us, harms others. Staying open, uh, I'm pretty sure it helps our brains, you know, uh, that to stay healthy, you know, um, that flexibility. Mhm. Now I'm really venturing into territory that I have no right to talk about, but once I get dementia, we'll know that I was wrong. So, so I hope that's helpful for you guys this morning. Love to hear any reflections or thoughts, any responses.
Yeah, I have a question actually, John.
Okay, John, hi.
Sorry, I always jump in, but actually I found because I'm in recovery on a spiritual path, as I age, I feel like I know less.
Uh-huh.
I'm more comfortable knowing less. And but the other thing I wanted to ask you is when you're sitting with a teacher, not you, but another imaginary teacher, and you have this, you begin to feel a sense of doubt, not so much the resonance, but there's this question that comes up, is this really true for me? And this kind of dialogue starts in my mind. And then there's certain teachers that I feel more capacity to be present with than other teachers because of that. So I wondered if you could say anything about that, or if that's something you've
Yeah.
experienced.
Yeah, that's really good. A good angle, another kind of angle to talk about. Thank you, John. I think that yes, when we open ourselves in the way I'm suggesting, we are making ourselves really vulnerable. And we should only do it when we feel safe with someone. We shouldn't just do it as a matter of course. We should listen to the teacher first and see if we feel that we can trust them enough to let them directly in. Um, I have definitely had experiences where I was alienated by teachers, uh, even you know because of my own views. It was painful. I can't say that they hurt me, but because it wasn't like they didn't do anything unskillful, but I mean, it's debatable whether it was unskillful. I'm thinking of a particular incident uh, where a teacher was talking about how now he like has no lust. And I was like, oh shit, like that doesn't help me. Like I don't want to hear that. Like um, it just and whatever. That set me off. So um, yeah, be careful, definitely. Only do this when you feel safe. That's you know questioning the teacher and questioning what they're saying is part of the path. You know, it is not like a mistake. If we can't do that, then we're just in a cult. You know. Thank you, Eleanor. Hi. I lost you off my
Hi,
screen.
Kevin. Hi,
Oh,
Kevin.
there you
I'm
go.
here. Here I am.
Okay.
So thank you so much for what you've been saying today. It's a lot of the stuff about listening and allowing the one idea or two ideas in a Dharma talk to like land. That makes sense to me. And also, I just wanted to comment when you were talking about teaching people to become Dharma teachers, you were contrasting the way you learned and the way you're teaching now as being two different modalities.
Mhm.
It sounds a lot to me like the difference of learning a foreign language or a second language as an immersion experience or as a classroom experience.
Okay.
That what you had in your life was the chance to immerse yourself in the culture of the Dharma, and you absorbed the totality of it, and then it was
Oh,
accessible to you in many ways.
won't say I absorbed the
Well,
totality,
but
but
you had
sure.
that available to you as opposed to having the list from the list. It's like learning the conjugations of the verbs and
Yeah.
learning this stuff. And if you're asked a question that doesn't in the new language that doesn't fit within the lessons. So,
Yeah.
but then the other thing I wanted to ask you was, you may have noticed across the time that I've sat with you that I often have knitting in my hands and in my lap while I'm listening to you.
Hmm.
And for me, that process of engaging that part of my awareness and my consciousness in a very habitual, very rote, very calming
Hmm.
activity helps me to
Right.
focus on you.
Yeah.
And then I know that when I'm doing that, I don't knit. I always like to look at my work while I'm knitting, and I don't look at you. But when you are engaged in a topic or an argument or a piece of information that seems particularly salient to me, I look at you, and
Mm.
I wonder if you could reflect, if you've been observing this in me, if maybe not on Zoom, but there I have been,
Uh-huh.
and it actually facilitates me listening to you. So I'm
Right.
interested in your reflection on that.
Yeah. Thanks, Eleanor. That's a really good question too. And I view it as mindfulness of the body. One of the reasons I love like just talking to you guys is you remind me of the things I forgot. Like I didn't really talk about being mindful of the body, and that's the thing. That's where you place your attention when you're listening to a Dharma talk. You split your attention between the teacher or the teachings, really, but it can, and your body, and that's how you keep yourself out of your head. Is that you kind of fill your awareness. What's not filled by here, the listening, gets filled with just mindfulness of the body. So you feel, and that can be done in a variety of ways. It can be done by just feeling the sort of weight of the body, sort of the whole body, or you can feel the breath, or you could feel your hands, or you could feel, your legs, or uh, it's whatever kind of works for you, and it's a good thing to experiment with. But it seems to me, and I've always sort of taken it that when you were knitting as you're listening, that's what you were doing. It's like, one of the things people do is they use beads, right? And what you don't have to be repeating a mantra, just like feeling the bead one by one. You're keeping attention in your fingers, So you're feeling your body. And the point being that whether knitting or feeling beads or being mindful of breath, there are no words or thoughts associated with that. If you were learning how to knit, you know, or you were learning a new stitch, then that would probably interfere with your listening. But of course, that's not what you're doing. You're using it as a way of staying in your body, I think. So I support it. But don't anybody else try that. Not until you're an expert like Eleanor. You have to get her permission. So, Vicky, did you just
Yeah,
unmute yourself?
you got a minute?
Yep,
Um,
sure do.
So sometimes, yeah, when I'm listening, I'm feeding back with my own mind and thinking about, right, doing the sort of contemplation stuff. But then there's another way that it happens, which is that I feel like I'm in somebody else, in the speaker's mind.
Yeah.
It's like my own mental stuff sinks. Sometimes slips away entirely, it feels like.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's like that Vulcan mind meld,
Yeah.
which is awesome,
Yeah.
and especially, you know what? It's especially awesome when I'm in a fight with my spouse,
Mm.
because then if I can jump out of this into, and get over there, like, and really have the question, what's going on over there?
Mhm.
Then it's like magic.
Wow.
Yeah. It's happened a couple of times in my life. It's pretty
Uh-huh.
cool.
So you start to really see things from his point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel, because it's only happened when we've been fighting.
Mm.
But, I could feel the heat.
Uh-huh. Right.
So anyway, it's
It's
interesting.
it's seems like a scary thing to do. Like,
Well, but it's awesome too,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Sure.
mean, it's really, uh, you know, there's a mindful component to it, it feels like. Anyway,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's very freeing, because it's like, oh, um, I get it, you know.
I
I
get it, right.
I think of it, but for the ego, I mean, it's kind of scary for the ego because like, wait, I'm losing my grip on my belief, uh, you know,
Or my own sense of my own, that this self needs to protect itself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, nice. Hmm. Um, Not sure if I've ever had that happen in quite that way. I was thinking more about like when a teacher sort of gets into like that hypnotic thing where I get kind of like hypnotized by them. That's different from what you're talking about though. Um,
Yeah, it feels like a deep understanding,
yeah,
a deep connection
yeah, yeah,
that's over on the other side
yeah.
somehow.
Yeah, it's like true empathy. Yeah, beautiful.
Mm.
Mm. Um, so before I go, I just wanted to mention that the we're doing this on Tuesday mornings and Friday evenings, and a week from this Friday will be Christmas. And I don't see any reason why I shouldn't have a class that night for an hour. It may mean, separating myself from the little family pod here, but I think they can deal with it. If it were, if I had to go somewhere, I probably wouldn't do it, but I do plan to do that. And if my recollection about the connection between Christmas and New Year's is correct, and that means that New Year's Day will also be a Friday, um, without looking at the calendar. So we'll just keep doing this like we are. So I'll be here, and we'll start next week. We'll start in step 6 after 9 months. So my hope is that we don't finish the book before we finish the pandemic. That's the goal here. Um, but the last section in step 5 is called meetings are meditation. And I was looking at it before, and I'm not sure there's really anything that I want to talk about out of it this Friday. So maybe we will just make this Friday a meeting, sit and then just let people share rather than having a talk. So we've done that a few times, or at least once over these 9 months, and it might be time to do that again. And it's always good to just check in with how people are doing. I see your faces. Many of you, so many of you, are here every time, and I have to say that uh, it's. I notice the difference when even the Spirit Rock class versus this, that I feel so relaxed with this group, because even though there's some of you I don't know, but you've just been showing up for a long time. And it just starts to feel really safe for me to just, you know, speak and see what comes out, and just to be really relaxed, and not worried about if people are going to like me, or, whatever. Uh, so thank you all for showing up as much as you do. I know you're doing it for yourselves, and that's who you should be doing it for. But the benefit of that is that it's also beneficial to me, and I will say beneficial to uh, the whole group that shows up. So it's nice the way that works, isn't it? We do one nice thing and it resonates outward in those ways. So it'll be good to just maybe check in with a bunch of people on Friday evening and hear how people are doing, and maybe hear from some of the people who I don't know, who show up. Or maybe I do know you, but I forgot that I knew you. That happens sometimes. Um, anyway, thanks, dears, and take care.